Okay, man, take us away.
All right. Welcome, everybody, once again. Happy Friday. And we are 24 floors up once again, live here on Facebook. And we have a great guest once again with us. This is Chase Rhymes.
Hey
And
guys,
Chase, thank you for joining us.
thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Definitely. And one thing that for all our viewers out there, Chase, he's an expert in digital marketing, e-commerce, digital sales, Google platforms, and I mean the whole alphabet soup when it comes to everything online. He's been there, done that, and he has multiple T-shirts, several different multi-million-dollar companies that he's launched and businesses. So we're looking forward to hearing from him and his insights and his thoughts of the future. And so once again, we welcome you, Chase. And real quick, I want to introduce the sponsors to the podcast or to the webcast right now. And first off, we have Digital Selling Conference, and represented by Patrick Weir. Patrick, if you would just tell us a little bit about the Digital Selling Conference, please.
Thank you, Jerry. The Digital Selling Conference is coming up really fast. It's coming up mid-February, the day after Valentine's Day. And what we're looking to provide there for entrepreneurs, like people like Chase and others, sales professionals, marketing professionals, is to kind of learn how to appropriately use the digital platforms that are enabling sales growth. And we'll be able to do that through 10 thought leaders who will be on the property in Galveston, Texas, along with some really talented individuals who will be the attendees and some great corporate partners that are teaming up to be a part of this fantastic event. And it's coming up February 15th, 2019. Learn more, purchase tickets, go to digitalsellingconference.com.
Excellent. Thank you, Patrick. And our next sponsor is Unbiased Data, represented by Gary Dennis. Gary, if you tell us a little bit about Unbiased Data, please.
Sure. So Unbiased Data is focused on sales as well, or helping companies increase revenue. And we are focused on multinational and international B2B businesses that are wanting to come to the U.S. and grow. So what we do is reach out to their potential clients and share their value proposition, interview their potential clients across a broad spectrum, and we collect that data and use data analytics to put together a report of the perception of their business, and then we provide a business recommendation based on that perception.
Excellent. Thank you, Gary. And that was Unbiased Data. And finally, the final sponsor is D-Man Training Technologies, represented by me, Jerry Moneycorot. And what D-Man does is we provide sales training and marketing consulting for healthcare companies, helping them find their voice and allowing them to give that voice and give that message out to their customers. Our current focus now is on digital selling. With that, let's get back to the pod and back to our sponsor, Chase Rhymes. Chase, once again, thank you for coming. If you just tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
Sure. Thanks, guys, for having me. So my background is in SEO, search marketing, and using those search marketing platforms to build e-commerce brands. I primarily have been focused in the electronic space over the last 7 to 8 years. I've built two large multinational brands. One is called Foscam. It's an IP camera company, and another one is a complete security camera company, I should say, called Amcrest. Built both of those brands. I also consult a lot for large Fortune 500 companies, that's my primary role. Has been kind of soup to nuts, everything involved from logistics and fulfillment to sales and marketing to product sourcing, everything that under the sun revolving around e-commerce. I've done it, building websites, managing customer support, everything. So I've kind of been through a lot of the evolution in the space. It's definitely evolved a lot in the last decade. And so I've sort of seen a lot of that growth and how that's affected and caused a lot of complexity and opportunity. So that's kind of where I've been focused.
Chase,
Interesting.
those are some great questions. One of the guests that we had on a few weeks back was focused on CRMs and the vast dramatic change that's happened in just the blink of an eye the last 3-4 years.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about SEO, you've seen from start to finish, start to where we're at presently. What would you say has changed in the last, since you started to now? What is
That's a good
kind
question.
of moving things?
So in its original, form, when I first got into the business, I mean, executing SEO strategy was a lot simpler, if I could say, or easier, because you could do things like link building, and it was very much based upon quantity of links and things of that nature. Whereas, as time has gone forward over the last 7 years, it's much more shifted to higher quality links and less volume, less quantity, and more quality. And then in terms of like getting third-party content published, for example, Google's algorithms have evolved to look at the quality of that interaction, not just the quality of the site, right? So they're looking for high quality sites, but they're also looking for high quality interactions. So people that came to that site and stayed there, right? That site holds a lot of traffic. It's not just a domain of the past that someone could acquire, for example, and buy that traffic and leverage it or do things like that to work around the system. So we went from an era of people doing a lot of black hat things, and a lot more gray hat things, to an area where it's evolved to a point where you really do things the right way in order to have great SEO. And so that's for on page and off page. And so I think that's been the major change, which is a good thing, because companies should be doing things the right way. You should try to build your business in the right way. You really shouldn't try to game the system and trick consumers. You should try to find good products and services that you want to sell, and go about building content around those things in a manner that's going to do right by your customer. So I think that's a good thing, but it definitely has changed the way you handle things and the way you go about executing tactics for success.
Chase, you mentioned SEO outside, or rather offline. Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah. So, there's a lot of things you can do, like with your site, to optimize it for SEO. But, in regards to getting third parties to reference your site, reference your products, it's a totally different skill set, than maybe what you're doing for, what you're doing on page.
Right.
So, for example, if you're in the electronic space, you can optimize the way you tag your site, or the way the copy on your site, or all those different things, so that it's set up well for Google search bots to pick up what you're wanting to pick up for keywords and get rank. But it doesn't mean that you're going to be able to get like CNET, right, to cover, or write articles about your products, or,
Sure.
Really high authority sites to reference your site, right, so that you can rank for those things. That's more of a digital PR, content issue. It's an issue of, can you create content that's going to get exposure? Can you create content that's going to get people interested in posting that content? And then can you go about creating strategies to where you can achieve that, right? And so those are, that goes outside of the granular technical skill sets that are involved in a good SEO on-page strategy, to more of a skill set of engaging consumers with content, engaging publishers with good content, and then getting them to publish it and to put it out there, building networks to do that. All those things are really important when you get further along the line of SEO strategy.
So, Chase, I like how you're talking about, and I think you mentioned this when we got together previously, not only good content, but good product and services. And I feel like right now in the market, I mean, you see it all over Facebook, you see it all over everywhere, where people are standing in front of their Bentleys and their Ferraris, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we'll get you 20,000 a month." They don't talk about products or services; they
Yeah.
just talk about the vehicle to get there.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, and I look at a lot of these guys, and I love, you know, the Gary Vaynerchuk's of the world, and you know you know, all these different people that are out there, and they're getting people excited about kind of becoming entrepreneurs, and you know, all those different things. But I think, you know, at the end of the day, you know, you really do need a good product or service. You know, even as a marketer, you can be the best marketer in the world, you know, but you want to deliver value to the consumer, right? And so, a lot of times when people are selling these methods, you know, they leave that out of the conversation. And you know, I think that that's important when you're looking at doing e-commerce or selling something online. You have to really look at that market, and you know, is that market saturated? You know, is this product or service a differentiator? What am I going to offer that the market isn't currently offering? You know, are there platforms out there that have a low barrier to entry where I could launch this product? You know, these are all questions that you want to ask yourself. You know, before you, it's not as simple as just applying a recipe, right, to anything, and it works. So yeah, I mean, I do kind of, I'm kind of skeptical when I see, you know, a lot of these guys out there. I mean, I'm sure that it does work for a lot of people that buy into their systems, and you know, but I think that it's a small percentage, you know, right? There's a lot of people that probably get burnt out, or they don't understand how they're gonna take it all the way to market. You know, all those different things.
But Chase, so you did it though. You built like a $70 million business, or maybe even bigger than that, on Amazon.
Right.
And so there's a lot of people out there, they're seeing all this stuff.
Mhm.
Obviously, you know what you're doing.
Right.
If there's somebody that's not in love with a particular product or service, but they want to get involved online, they want to find a business to market and make some passive income, if you will, what would be your recommendation to them to get started, to where they don't waste a lot of time dealing with these you know, these people that may not have their best interest in mind, or dealing with, you know, okay.
So when it comes to sourcing and selling on Amazon, the very first thing is you have to find a product category where there's opportunity. And so what does that mean? Well, that means that you have to find an area in which there's not a ton of saturation, there's margin opportunity, and there's demand. So what is that? How do you find that? Well, Amazon has categories, and they have subcategories, and within those categories and subcategories, there's rank, and there's ways that you can calculate and figure out what people are selling within those categories and subcategories. You know, those are not kind of like well publicized, but there are ways that you can figure that out. And even if you don't have like a method, you know, like I have a kind of my own method that I've been using for years to do that, but you can pretty much see by just looking at rank, because Amazon publishes rank within categories. You may not know the quantities, but I have a method to figure that out, but a lot of people don't. But you can still kind of tell. And what you have to do is you have to find an area that's trending, where there's opportunity. And the most important thing, in my opinion, is not by launching something that someone else can easily copy. You want to put something to market in which it has a differentiator. So for example, if you're in the alarm clock category and you want to sell alarm clocks, you don't want to just sell another alarm clock. You want to sell an alarm clock with a certain feature, maybe that doesn't exist. That can be a simple feature. It doesn't have to be a complicated feature, but something that gave it some variation, right? The reason is that, you know, if you source on Amazon and you constantly put out products you're just buying on Alibaba, you know, and you're just another seller, then if you establish if you're able to be successful and you establish that there's a market demand for that, then someone can easily come in really quickly and just put a product on your listing or become a competitor, right? And so that's something that, you know, creates a cycle where you'll do well for a short amount of time, and then you'll have to reinvent the wheel again by finding another product. So, and you know, that's why I really think that the skill set to be a great e-commerce entrepreneur is in finding in being a good sourcer of products where you can come up with something that's unique, make it proprietary if possible, to where you own it. That's the ultimate, right? You know,
So
yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
do you for finding those products, you recommend looking at like startups that have a unique product and being their representative, or?
No, I mean, I recommend looking at, you know, the market demand, right? For products, like, for example, like, you know, you could be in the toy category and you could see that, you know, there is, you know, an electric, you know, skateboard or something that's, you know, super high demand, and that you can source an electric skateboard, but you can make yours with some type of variation, some type of differentiation, right? That's not currently there.
So you're talking about manufacturing your own products.
Yeah, or source, yeah,
Sourcing them.
yeah, sourcing it. So like you find a manufacturer in China that can make that product, which is a whole other skill set. Like I'm saying, right? It's getting outside of marketing and getting into something else. But I really feel like Amazon's at a point now where it's very saturated, right? You have a lot of people on the platform. It's hard to find those areas of opportunity if you want to build a brand there.
Even Amazon, they have their own brand also, right? The Essentials.
Yeah.
They're just taking those same things and making their own version of it.
That's correct. I mean, Amazon has the system to where, you know, they have all the data, so they can see when a product has a ton of demand, and they can see when it has a lot of good margin. And so, you know, by seeing it has a lot of good margin, I mean, a lot of times people are selling to them and they're selling the product for them. So they can, like in my space, for example, they did that. So I sell IP cameras, right? I've been selling IP cameras for a long time. And Amazon knows that this is a huge growth category. They know there's a lot of money in it, but they sit back and wait to make sure that the market's established and that they can build a product where they have less liability. Because in my space, they have a lot of liability, right? Because we're dealing with security cameras, we're dealing with people's, you know, personal data, their personal images, their personal videos. So they want to make sure they put a product to market that doesn't, you know, give them any, you know, huge amounts of liability. So they waited a while, but then eventually they launched their own IP camera, right? They did that about 2 years ago.
Okay.
Now, and you know, so yeah, they do. They sit back, they wait for a market to be established, and then they launch their own brand. So, you know, as a you know, as a vendor, you know, as a manufacturer and or distributor of a product, and you're selling on Amazon, there are huge risks to you, you know, to your business too. So,
I mean, it sounds like it all ties back to product or service again. So let's say they look on Amazon, they find a category that has a high demand. They want to develop their own. Maybe we're getting too far into the weeds here, but let's say they find something like an alarm clock or some other thing, and they have an idea like, what if it was this or that? How would they go about sourcing that and building that if they don't have, you know, experience in that area? Any tips?
They have huge teams that you know, that source for them. And just like Apple, you know, like if Apple wants to build an iPhone, for example, or any other product, I mean, they put into place a very agile project management team that designs the product, usually here in the United States, and then they hand pick certain manufacturers of certain parts of that product that they're going to use. And there's a software component too. And there's a sales and marketing component. They basically build these mini companies within the company that bring these products to life. You know, Apple's the best in the world at it. They don't just you know, they don't just do this. They do it in a way in which they ensure that their products are going to meet a certain quality, and that those manufacturers are going to be able to meet certain market demands. And they actually put employees into those factories and into those spaces that help those factories be more efficient. And they put contracts in place to where those factories have to deliver, or there's huge penalties. You know, they have systems that they've built over time that work really well. And, you know, they're very good at that. And Amazon's trying to emulate that. But as I think we've all known, I mean, I think it's pretty well known that they've failed a lot in the hardware space. They brought a lot of products to market that just have missed. They brought a lot of products to market in hardware that have just failed. You know, they have a lot of that have succeeded, you know, Alexa and the Fire, and, you know, there's been the Kindle. I mean, there's been a lot of products that have been launched, right, through Amazon by Amazon that have done really well. So, but I think as a whole, they're still struggling with it. They're not as experienced as a company like Apple, for example, right? At sourcing.
Right.
So that's interesting. So I guess as a small business owner, they'd have to find a product that's not too expensive to make, something fairly simple, but they could change it up to make it more. I'm thinking, just your average Joe.
I was opportunity to start. Like if you wanted to start as a sourcer, to start with products, you don't have to necessarily change. I think that you can start with products that are more generic, that you can buy like from Alibaba.
Right.
Or, directly from a manufacturer.
Right.
Start in a category where there's a lot of demand. I think ideally, if you want to have a lot of upside and to not have to constantly go back to the drawing board and find another product, is the goal will be to actually to bring something to the market that has a variation that you control, that you own, or that that you're the first to bring and that you can sort of brand first.
One of the things that came to mind when you said that, Chase, was the do you remember, I think about 8 years ago, Silly bands, or those rubber bands that were shaped like something, and then the kids would wear them around their wrists. And
Slap
the guy,
bracelets?
the silly, something. They were like, if you took them off, it would be shaped like an animal or something like that, but it looked like just a rubber band on your wrist.
Right.
The guy that brought it to market, I mean, it was something so unique. And it just sold like hotcakes, and it became a phenomenon all over the United States and maybe even across the world. And then to Chase's point, you had the secondary market, people starting to copy it, but because he was in the lead on that, he was able to bring different versions of it. So every time he was able to bring something new and unique until the fad died out, of course. But
right.
Yeah.
Like in the security camera space, I mean, what I mean by finding a niche or something is like we were selling security cameras for a long time, and like we noticed that there was a huge demand for CCTV cameras that qualify for something called HD CBI. And I'm not going to go into the whole, technical explanation of what that is. It doesn't matter. But there was just a big demand for people that wanted HD CBI because they wanted to run one cable through long areas, long spaces, as opposed to running two cables. And that's what you can do with this, right? And so like this is like a real niche thing. It's a little thing, but nobody was servicing that. Now, we didn't invent HD CBI. We weren't the first. We didn't do any of that, right? We just brought a product that we know, because we're on the front lines, that people want, to a space where there's a ton of exposure, right? And put it there and did it right and did it well, and so that product then takes off. And so what I'm saying is, you work backwards. You work from the demand level back towards, okay, what can I build? But then again, it has to be in a category that has exposure. There's certain categories where, like on Amazon, where there's just not a lot of dollars flowing in them, right? So if you're the number one, I'm using this as an example. I don't know this category at all, but if blanket warmers are a huge category on Amazon, that's one thing. But if blanket warmers and there's no traffic for that on Amazon, then it doesn't matter if you're number one blanket warmer, you're not going to be doing a ton of business, right? That's probably a bad example, because I'm sure blanket warmers do really good on Amazon, but it's just the first thing that came to mind. So what I'm saying is that, there is a thought process, and when you're going to bring a product, that you come up with an idea that, you have something that's going to do really well. And that's one thing. And there's another thing to kind of look at what's selling on Amazon and try to fulfill that demand. And, what's worked for me is doing that.
Excellent. And so we've got a few more minutes till the end of the show. So I just want to reintroduce the sponsors once again. We've got Digital Selling Conference with Patrick Weir, Unbiased Data with Gary Dennis, and myself, D-Man Training Technologies, Jerry Moneycroad with D-Man Training Technologies. And we are here on 24 Floors Up. And once again with our guest, Chase Rhymes. Thanks again, Chase, for coming on board. Before we close up, we'd like to just ask you, could you tell us your journey on how you got here? I mean, we talked about what you actually did and how things have changed, but What actually got you into this field?
Great question.
Yeah, so my background, for years I was in marketing, kind of studying SEO and PPC, learning about how to drive traffic, and eventually I landed a role at Google. And so I kind of learned a lot on the other end from Google's perspective how the marketing world works, from with their algorithm, and how companies best utilize that platform in all of their products. And eventually I was kind of asking myself, how can I use all this data and this information and these technical things that I've learned to build a product myself? And so I eventually landed with a distributor of a product who was kind of struggling to scale it. And I came on board, and this product was called FOSCAM. And over the course of years, I worked with him through implementing a ton of marketing tactics, like SEO, like running really successful paid campaigns, like launching the product into Amazon, launching organic campaigns on Google and on Amazon, as well as paid campaigns on Amazon, building good sites, pushing out good content, having great customer service, a kind of suite of things that I knew worked to propel traffic, but also convert it over time to build that brand from around $3 million to $35 million in sales. So I saw that trajectory. However, what I also learned in doing that in those years there is that, the product matters. And, we had a lot of problems with that product that we couldn't control, because as a distributor or marketer of a product, you don't inherently control how that product's produced. So if your customers have problems, or there's things that you see that you want to fix, you're not in complete control. In this case, we became so powerful that we had exclusivity on this particular product, but it wasn't enough power to steer the manufacturer into doing what we wanted them to do. And so we launched our own brand, and that brand was called Amcrest, and that was sort of an answer to that problem. And with this brand, we don't manufacture it either, but we have a lot more control, because we're kind of custom ordering it from very, very large manufacturers who have a lot of capabilities. And we use the same distribution system and the same infrastructure to make that first product successful that we did with the second brand. And so that brand today does over $75 million a year in revenue, and it's quite large, and is available in everything from regional and major retailers to Amazon and on the website. So it's been sort of a long journey, and I think that in the end, I think that e-commerce encompasses many things. It encompasses marketing, it encompasses logistics, it encompasses customer service and customer support, and they're all interconnected. And I think that world is fascinating, but at the same time, it changes very, very quickly. So it's kind of a space that you have to be very agile in and very used to accepting of change, because it happens. If Google updates their algorithm, marketing changes. If Amazon updates policies, that platform changes. If websites come out with new backends, that change. Everything is always rapidly changing. And so if you're the type of person who likes that, that's one thing, but some people don't. And so, but yeah, that's kind of my story and kind of how I got to where I am.
Yeah, you seem like a guy who's always looking for a new challenge. So what's next for Chase?
Yeah, so like right now, I've been doing a lot of consulting, working with companies that have kind of larger scale problems that I haven't dealt with a ton from my own company standpoint that I'm helping to solve. And so I'm learning a lot. I think that challenging myself to deal with new issues and new challenges, because I think that's where you deal with a lot of growth, personally. So I'm getting a lot out of that. And so, that's kind of where my focus is right now.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Chase. We really appreciate it. And it looks like we're just on time. So thank you for joining us on 24 Floors Up. And for all our viewers out there, thank you for joining us once again for another episode. And once again, thanks to our sponsors and thanks to you, Chase, for joining us.
Yeah, thanks
Take
a lot,
care,
guys.
everybody.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Chase.
you, man.
Great
Yeah.
discussion.
Thanks a lot, Chase, for sharing your insights.
Yeah, no, thanks, guys.
All right.
Happy Friday.
Okay,
Hey,
guys, take care. We'll see you next time.
Yeah.
See ya.
Yeah.